Page 4, Sweet Betsy from Pike, a very old melody. On page 3, they give you what they call a work page. I don't like that title at all, but let's just briefly go through that stuff because it really is important that you understand that you're actually able to do that. Otherwise, maybe you're not ready for this book yet. You need to go back and review the other books first and go through them again and whatever. But let's just check on this page 3. For number 1, they want you to finish each measure. You see the first line is in 2/4, and that first measure has 1 quarter note in it. That's 1 count. So you need to add 1 or more notes to that measure for the other count. You got to fill it in. So you either add a quarter note or 2/8 notes. Either one will do it, as long as there's 2 counts. So you go through that line, just make sure there's 2 counts in each measure. On line 2, that's in 3/4 time. So like in the first measure has 1 quarter note in it, that's 1 count. So then you need to add a note or notes for 2 more counts. You could add 2 quarter notes, you could add a half note, or you could add 4/8 notes, or a combination of 1/8 note and quarter notes. So it's whatever. It's up to you on the notes you add, as long as they add up total 3 beats for each measure. And number 3, that is in 4/4 time. So there you got to make them all equal 4 counts. And look at the third measure. You see the dotted half note? Remember, in 4/4 time, the dotted half note gets 3 counts. Because a quarter note gets 1 count, and a dotted half note is the same as 3 quarter notes. In any time signature, it's the same. So in that measure, you're only adding 1 more count, because you already have 3, so whatever. A quarter note or 2/8 notes, it's up to you, whatever. On number 2, in the middle of the page, write the words in notes. So they give you the letters, and then you write the notes for those letters in the staffs, the treble and bass staff. You write them anywhere you want, as long as it's that letter. For instance, at the beginning here in the bass clef, it's a B. You can write a B in the next to the bottom line, because that's a B. Or you could write a B right above the top line, because that's a B. Either one, doesn't matter as long as it's a B. So you go through and you just write in all the notes that correspond to those letters. And then number 3 at the bottom, we get the time signatures. You get to figure them out. So this is a little trickier here. You need to figure out, if you can, what the bottom number is. You need to know what you're counting, because if you know what you're counting, you can figure out the top number. For instance, in the first line, in that first measure, we have 3 quarter notes. Well, if I make the bottom number in the time signature a 4, so a quarter note gets a count, then this would be 3/4 time. And that works out okay. In the second line, you get a quarter note. Well, look at the second measure. You get 2 quarter notes. So here, you could be 2/4 time. Still a quarter note getting a count, but there's only 2 of them, okay? And the third line down, look at the second measure, you get 2 half notes. See, I'm going for the easy measures. So these other measures with 8 notes, forget that. I'm going for the easy measure. And it's the 2 half notes. Well, I could go with a half note getting a count, and in which case it would be 2 of those, so it could be 2/2 time. Or I could go with a quarter note getting a count, in which case it would be 4/4 time, because there's 4 beats in the measure if quarter note gets a count. Either one works. I don't know if you've had 2/2 time yet. If you haven't had it, then it's 4/4 time. And the last one, you think, well, it's going to be a 4 something. What is it? Well, not necessarily. Again, look at the second measure. We have 2 dotted quarter notes. It's a little trickier, because if a quarter note gets a count, that's like 3 counts. But in 3/4 time, you generally won't see notation like this. Generally won't. Could, in theory, but no. So it could be in 3/4 time, but chances are this is more like where an 1/8 note is getting a count. And these are natural accents. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this case, it would be 6/8 time in that last line. Let me know if you have any questions on this page. Now, for what Betsy is doing over here, let's take a look at this. I see it's about 4 lines long. It's longer than that, but there's 4 lines of music to deal with. Treble and bass clef signs again. There's no sharps or flats in the key signature. So I'm saying this is in the key of C major. If you're doing the scales, make sure you're doing the scale for C major. And you just as well go ahead and do the minor scale too. You're going to start getting minors, so just start that. The minor scale with no sharps or flats is A minor. I have videos on them, 1 octave up and down, to learn them. And it's the trill exercise really I'm after here, because that'll do you the most good. And 3/4 time signature, we see we have a pickup beat because there's only one beat in the first measure. Well, it means the 2 beats got to be somewhere else. If you look at the end of the 3rd line, you see 2 beats in that one in the double bars. And then the bottom line has a pickup measure, and at the end of it, it has 2 beats. So this is in sections. You see the double bars at the end of the 3rd line, that's the symbol for leaving one section and going into another. It's like chapters in a book. You're leaving. Usually the melody or something about it is different. And that's what they're doing. Each section here has a pickup beat and ends with a 2 beat measure. So that last line is a section in itself. I'll look it over. I see a bunch of quarter notes and dotted half notes, and so I think we can handle all that, a few eighth notes. I want to take it one hand at a time and make sure I know what the hands are doing. The purpose of this lesson is so you can get the idea of playing repeated notes with each hand. You're alternating hands on the notes, and that's really what this is about. Otherwise, I would not use the fingering in the book. This is a terrible fingering, but for this lesson, we want to use this fingering because we want to work on this alternating hand thing. Right hand, you're starting with thumb on middle C here. So it's 3-1, 3-1. There, in the 3rd full measure, in the last beat, you see the LH, that's left hand. They also put the stem going down. The left hand's going to play that one. That's the repeated C's. And then the right hand plays the next measure here. Some publishers, when you're playing both hands in one staff, and they're somewhere, they will indicate which hand is to play it by the stems. So if the stems go up, it's the right hand. If the stems go down, it's the left. But you can't really always rely on that. You have to look at it carefully because it may not always be that way. Some publishers don't give you a hint. Here they're putting LH and RH to help you out. Second line is, and then the left hand plays the first one, and then as it's playing, the right hand comes up to here. The 3rd line come down a bit. Through the rest come down. I just reach down. 3 and 1. Last line, you get the chord. C chord, G7 chord, or 5/7 chord. See, in the chords, you learn to just recognize them as a thing, one thing. And you just think, oh, it's a C chord, or it's a G7 chord, or whatever. 1 chord or 5, however you're looking at it. You don't worry about, oh, what are these notes? Over time, you'll recognize it. It's just C chord and then a G7 chord. Okay. Left hand, you're starting here. 3-5. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And then the left hand comes up to play that C. And it goes back down. Wasn't that fun? The second line, you're here. And second measure in the second line, the left hand's going to play the first note in that measure. It's temper here. And then come back down here. Don't play this again. It's already been played. Just come down and then wait until the next measure. And then here. And then in the next measure, you're playing the last beat here. Oh, this is good. And then in the last 2 measures, it's 1, 2, during the rest, come up again. Actually, on the 3rd line, I do a 4. We don't have to keep moving around. And the last measure, second line is here, and then go to the next line. I don't want to keep, they're keeping you in a nice, neat 5-finger position. But come on. So I'm staying here, and I'm just going to use 4th finger and move the thumb up. So I'm just kind of here. Then back. I can cover all those measures in one hand position. I don't keep moving around. And then you're back down here. And then, you get 1 note there in their topper stuff. Now the bottom line is 3 and 1. once I have an idea what each hand is doing, I'll try and put the hands together here. And I'm going to hesitate all over. I don't care. I just want to know how the fingers are working together. And then here. And then here. This is where the left hand plays that. And don't play this again. Once you lift up, leave it up. So this is what this lesson is about, doing this. Because otherwise this is a terrible fingering. And the second line. Now hold this down as long as you can. Just because the pedal's down, it doesn't mean you can just play it staccato and come up. Hold it down as long as you can. Now as you're playing that, the right hand's got to come up. Right hand comes down. Get the idea. You go through and put the hands together. I already did. And then go over it however many times, carefully and slowly, and get rid of the hesitations. You have to look down when your left hand is coming over and whatever. Otherwise, try not to look at the keyboard if you can help it. And once I have that, then I'll think about the articulation or the expression. Here, we're pretty much going to connect it. You just lift up for the rest. Just connect it. Just connect it all and lift up for the rest. For the dynamics, P at the beginning is piano or soft, and that's the melody. Whatever you think soft is. This left hand, this background, it's got to be in the background. Don't play in the same. See, keep it in the background. So when the left hand comes up to play that, now it has to play the same as the right hand. So it sounds like one hand played it all. And that's pretty much the only dynamic they give you. Yeah. You don't need to play the whole thing at that level. Get into it, feel it, and if you feel getting a little louder and softer, go for it. It's just overall, it's on the soft side. And then the speed, there's words at this at the bottom. You get to figure out which word goes with each note, which note, that's fun. About where I've been going, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, somewhere in the middle, it's fine. And then they've added pedal. Well, if you weren't doing the alternating finger, you don't need pedal on this, so it sounds very nice without it. But you need it to help with that, and it's kind of nice to have the overtones. It adds a little color. It helps to connect the left hand in some cases. However, I would like to alter their pedaling just a little bit. I usually do. And you have to listen very carefully. This is why when you learn a piece, you learn it without pedal first. Then when you add pedal, you can understand and hear the difference it's making. Don't just blindly pedal whatever they say to pedal. In most cases, no. In this case, definitely not. At the beginning, I'm going to push the pedal down right after I play the notes. So that I want to start the sound before I release the overtones. Now, I would like to connect those first two notes. I like to connect those. Well, the only way to do that is to pedal them. So I'm going to push the pedal down with pickup beat here. And just leave it down. Then change it right after I play the notes. Then here. Rest. And then on the last measure, the first line on beat 2, everything comes up. So you get one beat of rest. And again, I'm going to pedal the third beat because it's repeated. And I want to connect it. So again, the first line. The idea? I'm not playing all the Now on the last two measures of the second line, we have this. I would like to hear the rest in the left hand if possible. That means I'm going to lift up for it. like that effect where it's not all sound all the time. So I'm going to lift up the pedal on the third beat on those measures where the left hand has a rest. Now in the third line, second measure, the pickup going into the third measure, I don't need to pedal those because they're not repeated. And the last line, same thing. I don't pedal pickup here. And I disagree at the end. I would like to connect these at the end. I have to pedal them for that, so I'm going to pedal those too. I'm just going to change it between the first and second beat and the next to the last measure. So the last three measures is here. I'm going to lift the pedal up for the phrasing so I can hear it. In most cases you get rest, you're lifting the pedal up anyway, but at the end of the last line you're going to repeat. See the repeat signs in the last line? Play the last line twice. Well, that's a new phrase, a new sentence. So I'm going to lift up here. So just a little bit of silence, like taking a breath before I go and play it again. Yeah, that's my impression of the pedal. I feel a little retardando at the end, so I did. It's interpretation. If you felt it, put it in. Remember the natural accents? 1, 2, 3, 1 at the beginning. Should sound like to here. Should sound like a pickup. To here. Feel these natural accents. That's part of interpreting the music, and I do cover interpretation to some extent in all these lessons here. So try and feel this music. Don't just quickly learn the notes and the rhythms. Okay, I got it, let's go on. No, get into the music and start feeling it. Anyway, you go ahead and learn it at least well enough to play it with no hesitations. And then come back to the video and let's play it together. I put the starting point of the play with me in the description of every video, so you can go right to it when you're ready. Let's play it together to check that you have the correct notes and rhythms. I'm not doing louds and softs, and I'm not going to do the pedaling because you hear the notes better without the pedal. So I'll give us 2 counts because we come in on beat 3. I'm going ready, go, and we'll just play it. This is not performing it, it's just checking notes and rhythms, that's all. Ready, go. Rest. Rest. Rest.